Seasons are about change, but also continuity and renewal. For more than 25 years, that's been highlighted by the Revels with their Spring Sing, a family celebration of the vernal equinox. Scheduled for Sunday, March 21st, this year's event will be virtual, but with a mix of music, poetry, and sing along potential. To tell us about the lineup are three guests from Revels: Artistic Director Patrick Swanson, Interim Music Director George Amlin, and one of the song leaders, Natty Smith. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us.
Pleasure,
Of
Chris.
course.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Well, great. Good to have you all with us. I want to start with Patty because I know there's a lot of continuity in what Revels does from one season to another, but this is a different year. You're doing things in a different way. So what does that mean?
Well, in some ways, we're doing things in a different way. I mean, we're doing this, in video form, but the theme has been the same, for a long, long time, and it really is about that power, as you said, the power of renewal. And Dylan Thomas talked about the force that through the green fuse drives the flower. It's immense. The power of nature to recover and revive itself is immensely strong. A lot of poets have captured it, and we capture it in song. And the ways that communities sort of pass that on from one generation to the next. A lot of it is about singing together, dancing together, speaking together, and that's universal.
Well, looking at your playlist for this year, one thing I noticed, there's a song, it sounds like just another folk song that you might have been doing any year, but it's a song about Julian of Norwich, who has, as I learned later, has become sort of a patron saint of pandemic survival.
Right.
Yeah, is that right? Well, that's very appropriate. Yeah, she, not he, but she was from the 14th century in Norwich, England, and wrote these words that she's best known for is "all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well." And that became the basis of the song by Sidney Carter that I'm going to be leading.
Right. And I want to ask you, George, about leading songs, because you're working with some professional singers here, but this is all about maybe blurring the boundary between professionals and the rest of us. How are you going to make that work?
Oh, I don't really think too much about that boundary because we're all singers and we're all song leaders in a sense. I mean, Natty Smith here wouldn't necessarily consider himself a professional singer. He's a very fine singer and a very fine fiddler, but and he makes money, so that makes him a professional. But I think we're really kind of based in the folk tradition where there's a great deal of ambiguity there.
Natty, what about the song that you're going to be involved in? I think at least one song I noticed in the list here, Red Winged Blackbird. Tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, that's
Sure, yeah.
Natty, yeah.
That's the song that my partner Erica and I learned a bunch of years ago, just off a recording by a Canadian folk singer named David Francie. So it's not necessarily a traditional folk song in the sense that it was written within the last 20 or 30 years. It doesn't come from time immemorial, but the themes in it certainly go along with a lot of the other material that is often shows up at Spring Sing. And I come from, in addition to being part of Revels, I sing socially and for fun at festivals with friends in very casual settings where, as George was talking about the blurry line between professional and amateur, there's a really blurry line between what people think of as folk songs and traditional songs and what people might think of just as music and songs in general. So this is a song that for me, it's easy to sing in the folk tradition, but it's
Right.
might not be it doesn't have as long a pedigree as, for example, the Julian of Norwich song.
Well, Natty, you're a song leader, and you're going to be working with people who aren't used to singing that much. Maybe they're a little hesitant, insecure about their own voice. How do you get us to overcome that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's for me, the things I think about are both my own presentation, just as a performer trying to be friendly and approachable. And I mean, David Coffin, the the classic Revels song leader is someone I've watched my entire life, and so I think what he does with his body, really moving as while singing, so people can kind of pick it up and jump in. I think something Revels does really well is providing people with resources. So making sure folks at least know the lyrics to the chorus, so they can jump in, is something that can be helpful.
And Chris, the other thing that we have going for us is that people innately love to sing. They need to sing. And we basically are just giving them that opportunity. We're giving them the lyrics. We're giving them a song which is easy to join in on, even if they've never heard it before, like Red Winged Blackbird. And that the power of the song itself and the need to participate and to sing is very powerful. So you just have to let them have it.
One of the other things we're learning, George, and we learned this from Revels over and over again, is that music gets around. It moves from one place to another. I think one of the songs that you have planned, I guess, as far as we can tell, it started as a plantation work song. It's been associated with Leadbelly, the blues singer, but you have some different voices doing it this time too.
Yeah, you're talking about Bring Me Little Water, Sylvie. Right. That was actually written by Hetty Ledbetter, better known as Leadbelly. And he's 20th century. So it does have a plantation quality to it. It has a very heavy work feel to it. He sang it, Bring Me Little Water, Sylvie, very strong and rhythmic. And so the way the girls are doing it, our Irish friends, is quite different, and it's been reinterpreted and it's morphed over the years into something a little bit sweeter. It's very nice, though.
And Patty, what about the Mayday Carol? Imported here.
Yeah, that's one of those ritual pieces, really, that's associated with a whole ceremony. In England, in the old days, and even up to the present, in some of the villages, they go out into the woods overnight and spend a night collecting greenery, and in the morning they emerge from the woods and put it around the doors, to mark the coming of the spring. And who knows what they did in the woods at night? But this is a ceremony that's enjoyed, and it's about rebirth and celebration. So it's and along with that go a whole bunch of songs, and that's a very sweet one that has been with Revels for our last 50 years, I think.
I noticed you're planning a lot of musical and even poetic elements from the Bahamas or other parts of the West Indies. Can any of you tell me about that?
Well, we have our friend Derek Burrows, who was in some shows of ours, a Spring Revels back in the 90s in the Emerson Majestic Theater, and then on another show in Christmas Revels in Sanders Theater in Cambridge. And he's a very versatile musician, used to be part of a group called Voice of the Turtle, and just a marvelous musician. And he has moved to Mexico. It's our loss, but he's happy there. And he represents, I reached out to him because I hadn't talked to him in a long time, and I just remember him fondly, and he was happy to do it.
Now, what does that mean? Working on a project like this, and you get to talk to people sometimes on the phone that you would not otherwise be getting in touch with.
Well, go ahead, Patty. You got a thought?
Well, I was going to say it's one of the the strange advantages of this really difficult situation is that suddenly the boundaries that constricting us have disappeared. So, some of the boundaries. So now we have, we can reach to Ireland and have people join us, reach to Mexico, gives us this opportunity to be in touch with people for whom it would be really difficult to join us in the flesh. So it's like along with all of the hardships, there are these really interesting moments here where we're creating new things and reconnecting with old friends.
Natty, what's that been like for you?
You
Natty,
mean Natty, right?
Yes, Natty.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time. I agree. In addition to being part of the Christmas Revels every year, most recently usually as a Morris dancer on the stage. I also am part of several dance groups in the area, and organized social things, informally, in people's houses, as well as folk folk singing sort of festival weekends, like the Youth Traditional Song Weekend that I used to be involved with. And yeah, this has been a time when all of those things were not possible for many, many months. And folks had to we had to get creative about how we would stay connected and stay involved with each other. So for dancing in the fall, and then again, hopefully soon in the spring, we started practicing outside safely at a distance. And after many months, last spring and summer of not doing that, I think it helped people really sort of distill and realize what was important about it. Why it mattered, why these things mattered to us. And it's been a lot of work trying to keep people connected. Dance groups and social groups that I'm part of. But as Patty said, I think it's made people realize and understand, and draw why these things mattered, and help strengthen new connections and old connections, and it really helped us appreciate why we do these things we do.
George, this is a family event, and you really cross these different age ranges. You have kids' songs. You also have songs that we associate with people like Kate Wolf or maybe Bob Dylan, Dick Gaughan. How do you get that all to meld together?
Well, the theme, as you know, is renewal and revival and celebration of the spring. And it has an uplifting quality. All the songs are up, and they don't necessarily relate directly to spring, but they relate to the theme of uplift. And so I think that binds these songs together, even though they are quite disparate. I agree. Some are modern and some are very old. And we deliberately brought young people into the picture. The two sisters in Ireland, I think, are 13 and an 11, and then there are a couple of sisters in Franklin who would do another song. They do the Mayday Carol, and they are 11 and 9, I believe. And we have some young poets. We actually have three young poets,
Right.
one of whom is Bahamian, and we've never met her. But we have her poem. She wrote it when she was 7 years old and won a prize with it. So we were delighted to have Derek read that for us. So a great range of ages as well as material.
Mm. And the themes that those poets chose, we asked them if they would write a poem of their own with that theme of renewal. And Kiva Kirby, who's one of our young poets, wrote one called The Warmth of Possibility, which is terrific. And then a classic, What the Robin Told, Christian Eckford is going to be doing. And of course, What the Robin Told has been set to music. It's a George Cooper classic, but what he told was spring is coming. And that's kind of right in the middle of what we're trying to celebrate.
A lot of birds in this playlist and reading list, I've noticed. And finally, Patty, the poem you're reading by Amy Gerstler.
Yeah, she's a really quirky West Coast poet. She's a professor, but she has such an odd way of looking at things, and I love that tell all the truth but tell it slant. And she has a kind of odd way of getting at the same thing, which is this pervasive restorative power of nature. That for every hurt, for every wound, there is a leaf to cure it. That's her message, and it's lovely.
I even copied that down in my notes. And finally, speaking of notes, most important here is if people want to plug into this on the 21st, how do they go about it?
Well, this is a Facebook Live event, so they can go to Facebook and look up The Revels, or they could. You don't need a Facebook account in order to do that. You just hop on, and the words will be there. You'll be able to follow along, or you can download them ahead of time from the Revels website, revels.org. And so there's a number of different ways to get involved, but it's a Facebook Live event.
Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us and taking the time to get us warmed up for spring. Patty Swanson, George Emlyn and Natty Smith from Revels.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. We'll have more news in just a moment.